When we first checked out Saint Sinner for the first time by Clive himself through Marvel Studios, we were greeted to an awesome and gritty story about a young man whose life has been utterly stripped, his soul, mind, and body taken away. Upon entering a sewer with his friends just trying to ultimately have a good time, he is come across with a demon called Runesmith, who eventually invades his mind and starts forcing him to kill not only his best friends, but young cheerleaders, as well as trying to kill his parents. And inevitably, the boy that we know as Fetter tries to plunge and end his life in the middle of a lake. When suddenly another bystander comes by and saves him, we were greeted to an angel. Now, Runesmith also had Fetter destroy this creature, and upon this, two entities are now invaded in his mind, the voice of an angel and the voice of a demon. We saw Fetter be taken to another dimension, to a place not unlike purgatory called the Amen, a place riding on the back of a turtle, and upon entering this dark location, he lost 9 years of his life, all in the span of a single day. Now, what we're here again to do today is to continue the story with the second issue of Saint Sinner itself, and one that lends itself to be a very interesting one. As with the end of the last story, and if you haven't seen that yet, I would very much recommend that you do so, otherwise this is going to be a little bit confusing.
What the fuck is this guy prattling on about?
With the end of that story, we saw Fetter, Kanto, the interdimensional and time-hopping creature, as well as Mishmash, a woman covered in plants and different kinds of growths, as well as a young man named Bullbaby, returned back to Earth in order to escape all these different demons and their eternal torment from the Amen. Now, with this story, we're going to be seeing Fetter's parents once again. We're going to be seeing all these creatures trying to find a new home, a new soul for Fetter himself, and the things that kind of play out in this story are very cool. We actually see another dimension be born, a world made from these three different entities, as well as a few new powers springing from Fetter's mind. And I gotta say, with the second issue, I think it has ramped up the writing even more so. I think the first one was more of a pilot episode, and now we actually get to see these writers take hold of the holy story that Saint Sinner is. This is Saint Sinner Heinous Homecoming, and where we will begin this story is back in the sewers where we previously left off with, and as well as the cops that these three entities have actually taken for prisoner for themselves. Home is where the heart is, and I am a man without a home. My human heart was torn from me in a place called the Amen. In return for my heart, I've been gifted with longing for a past that is lost to me, and for a future that is no longer possible. Crouching like a fetus in the womb of my former home, the embryo of something both less and more than human. What is it that the earth will bear? What is it that I will become? And with this introduction, we see Kanto just kind of talking about what they're going to be doing with his police officers, whether they are going to open a portal to another world, or whether they're just going to send them to the ends of time, as this man has the power to do so. And we see Fetter kind of disagreeing with this. He says our prisoners are human, and that any kind of exile will end their lives. And with this, we are seeing Mishmash in the background holding up a rat that will kind of come into play in just a little bit, as well as one of the police officers' hat that she has taken for herself. It matters not. Trouble will come to us without the officer's blue man's help. And with the final beast in this group of oddities, we see Bullbaby himself holding up the flashlight that he took at the end of the last story and just kind of saying to himself, shiny, and trying to kind of play with all these different officers. Leave the police officers alone, Bull. You're scaring him. We must at least remove the bodies of the two boys that the Runesmith killed in the sewer, and the half-corpse of our gate-severed prison mate. And this half-severed corpse is actually going to be a big part in this, and I have a feeling is actually going to be the big villain by the end of all these different issues. From the last story, we see this tentacle monster be collapsed in with the gate that they used to get back to Earth, as the demon in Fetter's head inevitably told him that this thing would take over the planet. And as we come to know the story more and more, I think we'll actually realize this to be true. And as they're all talking, Fetter and Saint Sinner himself realizes that he was never strong enough to stop these demons, that it was his fault that all these people died to begin with. I killed Kanto. I was too weak for the demon. I killed all of them, Tentacle and the boys. Do what you will, Kanto. Gate them, or burn them, or throw them to the end of time. We were weirdlings in our own worlds. We'll never pass as natives here. And as we're seeing Mishmash, I gotta say something that I found a little bit interesting, as she's obviously tried to eat the rat in question in the first page, and you can actually see its entire outline in the midst of her neck, just squealing away as she doesn't chew. I know she is part snake. I don't know if this is how she feeds in general, but a terrible death nonetheless. I'm human, Mishmash. I'll go up after it's dark. Find a safe place for us all. Sweet thought, lovely. But you don't know yourself. And as Philip Fetter is looking down at the puddle below him, he sees that his eyes are actually gone, left by only black pits of darkness as well as 2 little beads of red. And while noticing this about his own body, he realizes that maybe no world will ever be his home again. That maybe all 3 of these prisoners from the Amen are completely lost and will never actually find the sanctuary that they yearn so desperately for. Philip Fetter looks down at himself, and from above we see the sewer grate moving to the side, and it is none other than more police officers, realizing that every time they've looked for all these different boys, this girl that was killed in the lake, and trying to actually find the killer of all these different people, that this has all been a waste of time, and that the only place they haven't checked is the city below. And as they begin to climb down into this dark, damp ecosystem, they notice that their cop buddy is down there with something tied around his mouth. One of the cops goes up to him and he actually unties us, and as he does so, his buddy starts screaming about these eyes, these terrible eyes that he's seen on this man that did this to him. "What are you talking? Hey Johnston, give me a hand with Manny." And in the darkness where this cop stands above his friend, we just see the other cops behind him being taken down by Bull Baby himself. And this is just kind of the end of this section of the story, where we actually get to see the continuation of what happened last time, all these people down in the sewer. And what we get to do next is actually meet some new characters. We get to meet a detective called Agent Duffy, and this man actually seems to be for the better. He seems to actually want to know what's going on with Philip Fetter, and he seems to be very interested in this case. He doesn't quite believe that these are murders, as a lot of the bodies in the morgue have suddenly disappeared. Something's wrong with the eyes, unless they were meant to be this way. You found this on the woman's body. Yup, right after we pulled her out of the river. Heinous said she saved a kid from drowning, and he killed her for the trouble. Got to wondering if this was a bona fide saint or some kind of cult thing. I've never seen anything like it. Yeah, well, I can't shake the feeling that this medal has something to do with the murder, if there even was a murder. You say the body just disappeared? Right out of the morgues. Very strange. Frank Kelly. That wouldn't be Francis Xavier Kelly, would it? After the saint? And with this back and forth between Agent Duffy as well as the man in front of him, the other detective tells him that both of his brothers are actually Christians himself, and that he will be back with some information trying to figure out whose face is on the side of this coin. This strange being with horns and an absence of eyes that nobody can seem to pin down. And with the next couple of pages, we will be seeing Agent Duffy walking through the streets, just kind of talking alone to himself, as well as Philip Fetter returning home. Sergeant Duffy is a practical man. He doesn't believe in fairness or demons or saints. Seeing is believing. That's what he thinks. Besides, he's got those missing boys to worry about. And as Sergeant Duffy is walking down the street, he just kind of remembers that everybody says that this young 16-year-old boy has been acting weird, and he just kind of tosses this away as the boy is a teenager, and he says this is to be expected. And on top of this, he's remembering the reports about the body being pulled from the lake, and he remembers that they said that there was a jacket, and he wonders if that was Philip Fetter or one of these dead kids from the sewer. But as we walk away from Detective Duffy, we are greeted to Philip Fetter once again, walking through the rainy streets and just kind of monologuing to himself, which I find very strange, as there's just nobody else around, and it's kind of just written like a diary entry. I walked the rain-drenched streets of the city, searching for the safe place. The city that was my home only 9 years ago. Only 9 years ago and just yesterday. And as he's walking through this cold dampness, we get a part of the story, a new power of Philip Fetter that we've never seen before, where he is actually able to hear the prayers around him. His body has been invaded by demons who have forced him to kill his friends, as well as other strangers, but his mind has also been saved by an angel. And with these two entities, he's basically given the choice of whether to answer these people's prayers or just simply walk away. Have I been so evil, Lord? Are my sins so great that there is no sanctuary? No warm, safe place to rest my head? What voice is this? Who else needs sanctuary? And with this thought, we get to see the demon and the angel chime in once again. Essentially just kind of acting like the devil and angel on your shoulders, as they are both constantly at war with each other, and Philip Fetter has only been allowed a small space to stand between them. The old man prays, sinner. You hear his prayers through me. See what his prayers get him, saint. The old wet night for a blanket, a sidewalk for his pillow. The demon's words have truth for me. Like everyone else, I walk past the old man, going where he cannot. I go home. And as Philip Fetter basically just leaves this homeless man in the night, in the cold wetness of the rain, to basically rot, he realizes that there is nothing he can do for him, as he must help himself. Well, we actually cut to the next shot, and we are actually seeing his home, where he's hearing yet another prayer, one that actually happens to be his grandfather. And this will be the introduction to another set of powers that he has, one that I actually find really cool, and a very interesting idea. Prayer of another old man. Where am I? What is going on? Help me! This one, your grandfather. This prayer touches me. This time I won't walk by. That's right, sinner. Let mercy guide you. And as Philip climbs the side of his own house and enters his own room through the window, the demon comes back in, kind of claiming that this place used to feel like a prison to him. And Philip realizes now that this room is the only refuge that Philip Fetter could ever want now. He decides to continue on, and he just continues to listen to these prayers coming from above. He walks upstairs, and we are greeted to none other than Philip Fetter's grandfather. I follow the prayer of a man who's lost himself. Shh, it's okay. I'll help you. And Philip Fetter reaches out his powerful hands and he puts them on his grandfather's head. He seems to have something click in his mind telling him that he can make things young once again. And while he doesn't actually have control of these powers, as we will come to see, he begins to make his grandfather younger. And at first it is working. The memories are returning to this old man's head. But as he continues, he is actually seeing that this man is not getting younger. He is becoming earlier. And by earlier, I mean an evolutionary standpoint, where this man is actually receding. He is actually devolving into what seems to be a caveman, a Neanderthal of all things. And he immediately stops at the presence of another being. I am not the boy who left this house. The dog knows this. And once again, he is reaching out his hand and using his powers, not for good this time, but for bad. And he actually puts his dog to sleep. And as he does this, he realizes that some are meant to pay for sins, and others for good deeds. The dog lies on the ground, and we see Philip Fetter's parents actually walking up. Philip, is that you? Rusty, no! Nora, Tom, something's happening. I know things again. Philip here touched me and But Philip, you're soaked, boy, and you've grown. Have I been asleep for so long? They've entered my home, and they've made me pay. Them, the two of them, angel as well as demon. But it's okay now. Mom's here now. And with the reunitement of his parents, his mom could not be happier to see him, but she needs to understand what exactly is going on. The reason why her young boy is now made to a man. Philip, I don't understand, baby. Make me understand. Easy, old boy. I'll take him outside. And as his father picks up the dog, he thinks to himself that he must get help, that this is no longer his son, and that he needs to call the police. He walks downstairs, and Philip begins to talk to his mom about all these different events that have occurred, about all these different people that he's hurt, as well as some of the good deeds that he's done, about how he's been gone for 9 years and a single day. I don't understand myself, Mom. I've helped people, but I've hurt some people too. Something's happened to me. And honestly, I found this reunitement with Philip's parents very heart-touching, as him actually curing his grandfather of probably Alzheimer's or dementia or some sort of disease, as well as the meeting with his mom just trying to plead with him that she just needs to understand, that she just wants her son back. I thought this was kind of an awesome way to start this story, as well as seeing Philip Fetter just being really sad about it, as he used to be a child 9 years ago and only yesterday, just playing with his friends when something completely unavoidable happens to him, forced into basically an eternity of torment, as well as knowing the guilt of what has been happening to him. And no matter how old Philip looks, that he is still inside just a young boy. And he thinks to himself that things will be normal from now on. And while all this is happening, we're cutting back to the sewer system with Kanto and Mishmash just trying to find the half-tentacle being before something bad happens as they climb deeper and deeper down into the sewer system. I left the boy's body in a back alley of the Neboys among some corpy graves. I see. I've brought a beautiful light. We'll be able to see him now, even through the water. This is where we left him. I can feel the gate's afterheat. And as they're traveling through, Mishmash just kind of opens her coat. We are greeted to a slew of these different plants actually growing out of her body. And she realizes that this new world, this place so fresh and new to her, is filled with life. Flourishing blossoms, microbes in the water, and animals aplenty. She feels powerful, and she says that she feels as if she could take on 1,000 demons. And Kanto, just kind of resenting this, tells her to be careful what she wishes for, and that she might actually get it. We must find Tentacle's corpse and return quickly to Bull Baby and the humans. I hope we've not erred in trusting our Bull Baby to watch the Blue Ben. I hope we've not left a monster from the Amen to wash into the Earth's sea. And my leaps across time into Saint's future, I've seen nothing of him. Perhaps that means we will have found him soon. There's rain enough to have washed him through 3 worlds by now. And as these two look down into a deeper crevice of the sewer, we are going over to Bull Baby, who has been left in charge of watching these officers that they have just subdued, just tied to the ground, as he is playing along with the flashlight, just craving more of shinies. He loves shinies. As Bull Baby is looking down at the water, he sees the half-tentacle monster just kind of flying by him. Bye-bye, bad slimy guy. You was means to Bull, not like mans. Mans wear shiny. Bull wears too, just like Mans. And with this, Bull Baby just picks up one of the officers, he holds him up in the air, and he kind of shakes him to make his shiny pin fall off onto the ground. And when he does, he puts the officer down, and he tells him to say thank you for whatever reason. As he's just kind of terrifying these men, these officers haven't really necessarily done anything wrong, they're just kind of following on a case. And inevitably, they do say thank you. They're going to basically do anything they want for this Bull Baby, until they actually realize what a simpleton this character is, and they kind of take advantage of this whole situation. You welcome, good mans. Johnson, you still got those flares? Yeah, but what good is it? Shh, follow my lead. Hey, listen, I got a great shiny. I'll trade you for that other shiny you got. The knife. Yeah, that's it. Thank you, thank you. And sadly, Bull Baby does trade them the shiny for his own shiny, the knife itself, which is a little bit dull and not quite as shiny as their pin, and surely this will make Bull Baby happy, but inevitably will only lead to bad things. And as cute and as simple as Bull Baby is, we are cutting back to Philip Fetter as he's talking to his mother about all of his new powers and all these new situations that have happened to him and where he's been for a whole day for the last 9 years. It looks frightening. No, just a bit disturbing. Not as disturbing as the story you've told me. It's so hard to believe. And you don't sound like yourself. The entities, they've been living in me for 9 years, Mom. In a way, I've become them, and I can do things. Here, watch this plant. And as Philip holds out his hand to this houseplant standing next to him, he says it's evolving, turning into something new, and as it grows and grows, it actually begins to turn into a monster, and actually tries to consume Philip. His mom jumps off the couch and makes him aware of the situation, and Philip just kind of apologizes and returns this thing back to normal. Mom, I can't control it. Like what it made me do to Danny and Greg. I need your help, Mom. I want my life back. I want my home. I just want it back. And as Philip pleads and begs, we see his father walking back in the room with a new mysterious guest behind him. And this is none other than Detective Duffy, ready to hand out some questions and to try to get to the bottom of this coin as well as all these mysterious deaths throughout the city. Philip looks incredibly confused by this and he just says, Dad. His father just simply ignores us and just tells him that he needs to answer Duffy's questions. First, maybe you could tell me what this means. Any of you kids involved in any kind of cult or anything? And maybe you could tell us what really happened to Philip Fetter and the 2 other kids. Duffy holds out the pendant in front of Philip's face, and when Philip goes to touch it, it becomes red hot and it burns Officer Duffy's hand. And as he's recoiling, Philip knows that this is not good, and he begs and pleads with his mom to tell everybody that this isn't his fault, that he can no longer control these new powers that he's just obtained. And with this, his dad is freaking out. He tells his mom not to touch him, and from the side of the window, we actually see another officer, actually a couple of officers with these dart guns. They scream to get out of the way, and they start to light Philip up with all these different darts, these sleeping agents, and inevitably put Philip down. Don't get near him. Don't let him touch you. Dad. Mom. Fool! They've betrayed you. Should have killed them when you had the chance. In the darkest corner of a drugged mind. 3 questions, Saint. What's happening? You're dreaming, sinner. The drug, the one they shot you with. You're sleeping now, and it's making you dream. And as we go to this page, it's very cool. We actually get to see things that Philip is actually dreaming with, which happens to actually be a bunch of different cartoons. We're actually seeing Ren and Stimpy, we're seeing the baby from the cover of a Nirvana album, as well as Bart Simpson, Spider-Man, MTV, all these different things. And as Philip is walking around, a young child comes up. And Philip is very distraught about who this is. And when he asks, the young child just merely says, You silly, I'm your past. And I your future. You defiled me once and spared your parents. See how they repay you. You cannot defy me while you sleep. I rule here, Saint, and I say kill. Kill and kill. And with this, the demon is correct. He cannot control his body in this dreaming void, and his hands clasp around this child's neck. His past, in an attempt to actually kill his former self, so only what is left are these terrible deeds and these warring entities inside of his mind. He begins to scream, and as he does so, he begins to wake up a little bit. He sees that he's in a padded room, bashing his head against the wall in an attempt to stop him from killing his own past self, to retain all of his memories and the young boy that he used to be. Better to bash your full head in. Better to kill the future. Better to die than dream this dream any longer. The child lives, sinner. You're awake, and he lives. And as Philip Fetter saves his past self and awakens in this cell, we are cutting back over to Kanto, Mishmash, and Bull Baby as they're about to create an entirely new dimension. And another part of this book that I found really cool and something that I can't wait to get to more of, as I think the next issue will be kind of about Philip Fetter just kind of claiming this new territory and possibly claiming a new soul. Good. Good, Shiny. Nice mans give me it. Mans say you welcome. I can feel the human who wore this jacket. The saint sinner. He's in pain, wanting to remain, knowing he cannot. We must find neutral territory, a place where he can begin the search for a new soul. We must find it fast, for the blue men saw me take his jacket. But does such a place even exist? It may exist if we wish it. It is a thing I have not tried. Those from my world who have made the attempt have never completely returned. A piece of them always remains in the new creation. Then you will drag us with you to this other dimension, will you? Not another dimension, to a dormant dimension. And we see Kanto open this giant green vortex above them to this dormant dimension where a new world will be forced into birth. And as he does so, Mishmash looks behind her and she can see that the cops are right behind him. She tells Kanto to hurry and to take them through this new void, and this is what Kanto does. We see a hand reaching down from this, pulling Mishmash and Bullbaby into it, claiming that those who would wake a sleeping dimension, forcing it to give birth to a new world, that they must inevitably leave a piece of their own humanity. And with this, all three of them are pulled into this new world. They must give their freedom. Now it is Kanto who must give his. He will be a world waker. He will open the womb of time and space. With him, he takes two others. One who carries within her the seeds of 1,000,000 forms of life, stolen from 1,000 worlds. Mishmash will seed the womb that he opens. The other has nothing. Nothing but a tremendous will to live, to survive. Bullbaby's life force will activate the seed. They are the new trinity. Father, mother, and child. Creators of a cosmos to house their saint and savior in only an eon or two. It is done. And as this new world is formed, we see Mishmash just kind of standing there in a daze, and she asks Kanto how many lifetimes to make a world, and he says not very many in the grand schemes of things. She asks again, how many lifetimes will this last? All of them, mother. This world has always been. We are its parents and progeny. And when we go to this next page, we are seeing all these new life forms on this planet that Mishmash has brought, as well as the landscape that Kanto has brought for himself. We see a flying pufferfish with wings and a tail. We see these flying turtles. We see a moon that looks like a giant gemstone. And as Bullbaby is just kind of frolicking around, Mishmash wonders to herself and to Kanto whether or not he can actually find Saint Sinner once again. I have just enough strength to give him a hand, if he's able to help us. Kanto reaches above himself and he actually forms one of these green vortexes again. He reaches his hand through and he is in search for an instant of time that he barely remembers. And as all this is going on, we are cutting back to Philip Fetter, just kind of locked away in a cell and actually getting the chance to talk to Duffy, a man who actually wants to know what's going on and how Philip Fetter has become such a different person in just the span of a day. He hands him a pair of glasses and Philip says thank you, as he doesn't want to disturb anybody. Yes, I believe that you're, not exactly human, are you? Not exactly. I can't let you go. You understand. Nothing in my experience exactly covers this situation. And as Duffy's looking down, he's thinking himself whether or not he's actually doing the right thing. He can't tell if this is just a child who has been stricken with some kind of awful curse or some kind of cult activity, and he just does not know. And Philip Fetter actually hears the prayers going on in his head. The prayer of this strong man touches me. I must believe him of his burden. I use my power to advance life to a future form. I think of the mildewed jacket, the fungus surges and grows. And as all this moss and fungus is just growing around Philip Fetter's body, I'm not exactly sure how this is supposed to actually absolve this man of his sins or even make Officer Duffy feel better about the choices that he's been forced to make. But the green vortex appears above Philip's head and he realizes that this is none other than Kanto. We see the hand going down and Philip grabs it, being pulled into the next dimension, into exile, into death, and away from the human existence that he's always known. And as he's going through this portal, he looks to Sergeant Duffy as he's being taken away, and he tells him that he forgives him, that he has seen his prayer, and that he needs to know that he is doing the right thing. And as Philip Fetter is taken away into this new world, into this dormant dimension, something I find so interesting of Kanto and Mishmash actually creating this thing with their own bodies, using each other to form different kinds of life, and also using Bullbaby to kind of use it as the will of life, something that just wants to survive. Philip is gone, and we are cutting over to this next page where we will inevitably see the tentacle monster once again. And this is where I kind of say that the half-tentacle monster that was left behind by the closing gate in the beginning of the last story is probably going to be the biggest villain of all. As when the demon said that he needed to close the gate, that this thing would take over the entire planet. I honestly don't think he was lying, and you will see why. We're cutting over to these three men in the boat, two of them that are just kind of harassing this young boy in the middle who actually has a concrete block tied to the bottom of his legs. Look deep enough to you, Jenkins? We wouldn't want you showing up first time it don't rain in a few days, huh? You ain't worried, are you, Jenkins? Look on the bright side. At least your feet'll stay dry. And as we're getting this close-up shot of this man named Jenkins, somebody that we also have not met yet, we see his bruised eyes. And we see him beginning to worry as these other two men are just kind of tormenting him. And cutting over to the next panel, we are looking down in the water below. And what we actually see is the tentacle monster itself grabbing all these different fish and actually becoming bigger and bigger, forming eyes and forming more tentacles. The two men grab Jenkins and they bring him to the edge of the boat. Well, guess this is adios, amigo. Guess you'll be dining with the fishes tonight. And as he's saying this, we see an enormous pink tentacle come out of the water and grab this man by the mouth. Not Jenkins, but one of these two henchmen, pulling him deep and down under the water. The other man looks over and he's just screaming. He has no idea what's going on. Jenkins begins to scream for himself through the cloth tie above his mouth, and as he's doing so, the tentacle comes back up and grabs this other henchman, bringing him deep and down, and we are left with a scene of just this mysterious man Jenkins just kind of sitting there, screaming and screaming and screaming. And this is the end of this issue. Now, I thought this one was actually a little bit better than the last one. I think the other one may have had a little bit more atmosphere, with kind of watching Philip Fetter go down into this unknown territory to the Amen, where he has lost 9 years of his life in the span of a single day, to being tormented by these demons. But I find in this one is a little more heart-touching, with Philip actually talking to his mother again and just kind of pleading with her that he just wants his life back, and that he has no idea of what has actually happened to him, that he has no way of stopping himself from hurting his friends or the woman by the lake. As his dad is just kind of trying to rat his kid out, he realizes that this is no longer his son, as well as Philip actually curing his father's disease, as well as Kento Kanto, Mishmash, and Bull Baby creating an entire new dimension from basically from nothing, using their own bodies and things like that. And I gotta say, Saint Sinner is a very unique story. It's something that I'm really glad I finally picked up and read. I needed a video to make, and I was like, I have no idea which one of these I want to do. And so I kind of looked through my older stuff, and boom, there we go, Clive Barker, Marvel Studios, and I knew I had to take a chance, a will. And I think most of you have enjoyed that for the most part, so thank you all so much for watching that. It's definitely one that I'm having a lot of fun with, and it's a story that I'm generally interested to see where it plays out towards the end. I'm not sure exactly how many issues there are, but I know I have at least the next 2 or maybe 3, so just continue to look forward to that, and we'll just see where all these different stories take us with Saint Sinner, with the end of the world, as I'm kind of sure that this tentacle monster is going to bring to the rest of the humanity. And who knows, maybe they'll escape into this new dimension and Philip Fetter will reign as king, both parts demon and angel. But yes, everybody, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think about this story so far. Is the camera still looking good? I'm enjoying these lights and things like that. I just got a light umbrella, so hopefully that does something. I'm having some trouble getting the perfect lighting and things like this. But so far, so good. And I shall see you on the next episode of From the Heart, with more Saint Sinner, Hellraiser, and all stories in between. Have yourself a fantastic day.